Sunday, all parts are working?
Yes. You're all set,
You know,
thanks.
she's still seeing-
All right, good, Chris, thank you.
Yeah, all right.
All right, good evening, ladies, and welcome to the February 7th, 2023 meeting of the Orange Town Plan and Zoning Commission. I'm Commissioner Ozzie Parenti.
Tom Tarenti.
Paul Kaplan.
Kevin Cornell.
Jack Demerjen, zoning administrator.
All right, we're missing Commissioner Smith tonight and our zoning administrative assistant, Tammy. We'll have them back for the next meeting, maybe, I hope. Or,
We'll see.
Yeah, okay. All right. First item on the agenda is a review of the minutes from the January 17, 2023 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look those over? I had one thing, Jack. I'm not sure if it's a typographical error or an attempt at a coup.
Chairman Kaplan?
Chairman Kaplan,
Yeah, I was
where's-
demoted,
oh.
I noticed that.
On 3?
on page 3. That was the only thing I noted.
Okay.
Jumped out
Sorry,
at me.
Paul, next time.
No, I was actually happy for the motion.
Okay.
And also page 4.
I missed that one. Anybody have anything else?
Oh.
Tom, you okay? All right, all those, let's have a motion to approve.
Kevin, you okay? Yeah, I'm good.
Move that we approve the January 17th, 2023 meeting minutes as amended.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
I abstain.
Abstain.
All right, next item is old business. And on the agenda, we specifically mentioned ground-mounted solar panels. Is that?
Yes, it was something I briefly brought up a couple weeks ago, but we had a pretty packed agenda when it was brought up, so we kind of pushed it down the line. To kind of recap, I've had a lot of calls recently about ground-mounted solar panels in a residential property for people who are interested in installing them. And currently, we don't really have any regulations that pertain to this sort of structure, if you will. And I know there's someone in the audience tonight who's in this industry who has been curious for this kind of use, so I invited him to be here in case anyone wanted to hear from him. But essentially, we need to figure out how we want to regulate or not regulate this sort of thing. I called Woodbridge and Fairfield because I know that they've had similar questions in my time, actually at the training session that I was at a few weeks ago, and both of them treat them as any other structure.
What is the reason that you wouldn't treat it like any other structure?
You could really put them anywhere that a structure could be built. So you could put them in the front yard if you had the room. You could build them as big as you want, pending a special permit, of course, but, there's really no limitation on, using, you could take up your entire bulk standards of your property for a solar array. And aesthetically, it's, again, something to talk about. Do we feel aesthetically there's something appropriate for this?
I've never actually seen one, I don't think.
You see,
I have?
You've seen them on the side of the highway.
right, sides of the highway, the long strips, they're typically between 9 and 11 feet tall. Again, we have someone who might,
Do we have them?
we can invite him just to, and ask him questions only if the commission wants, but I know, I've been getting a lot of questions about these, so if the commission wanted some details, that might be the best way to start.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with that.
No, absolutely not, as long as the commission, Mike, right?
Yeah,
Mike, if you want to come up,
sure.
maybe give us a brief overview on,
Let me just sit somewhere.
actually, the podium would be
Come
great,
to the
please,
podium.
yeah, thank you. So we get your name for the record.
Official.
We're not on the record.
Oh, well,
If
for
you could
the,
just introduce
for her
yourself.
record.
Yeah, sure.
That'd be great.
My name is Michael Gallagher. I represent Prime Energy Solar out of Milford. And I'm actually here on also behalf on an actual client of mine who is a resident of Orange on Lambert Road, who is looking to do a ground mount installation. And we kind of got a little ahead of ourselves on it because we secured the financing for the client, did the designing and engineering, and then when we got to permitting, we're like, oopsies, there's no laws for this in Orange. So that's how that happened. Him specifically, his usage is grossly over what his roof can have on it. So his roof is too small versus the amount of electricity his house uses. So the only way for him to offset that electricity is by way of a ground mount solar array.
I see not talking about, a commercial.
No, it's a residential.
It's specifically residential properties that I've been getting more
Yes.
calls on.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought we were gonna be talking about, a commercial solar farm.
No, typically when solar arrays are that large, it actually immediately goes to the siting council. I think 1 megawatt is the threshold there, where if you're creating more than that in a solar array, local authorities actually don't have any permitting review rights. It goes immediately to the siting council for their review.
And residential solar in other towns, generally the limit is 25 kilowatts maximum. So however many panels that ends up being, that's the maximum size for a residential solar array, whether it be roof or ground mount.
I feel ill at ease to even talk about this stuff, but for the larger one that you just mentioned,
Yeah.
how would that power an entire house?
Yes, if the usage is such that it would cover it, yes. Most houses, if you did 25 kilowatts, that's about double the state average. But a good sized house that has enough property, might have electric heat, might have electric hot water, could have EV vehicles. All those things will increase the substantial use of the electricity demand. And so sometimes a 25 kilowatt system, as is with this particular client, is necessary in order to offset as much as possible. But to be honest, because of the way the cost of electricity is going up like crazy, especially in Eversource territory, we just had a 43% increase. So people are looking for all ways that they can offset electricity and also electrify their homes to try to save money.
First name was Mike, right?
Michael Gallagher.
So I just make sure I understand. If you had one of these solar ground mounted, would that be in and of itself, forgetting the ones on the roof?
Yes.
Would that be enough to power a 2,000 square foot, raised ranch? let's say?
Absolutely. Because you could build them really as small or as big as you need them to be in order to offset the electricity that the homeowner is using. So even if the home is only using 5 kilowatts, then the array only needs to be 5 kilowatts worth.
What kind of size are we talking about for that kind of 25 kilowatt?
You're probably looking at an array that's about 65 feet long, 20 to 25 feet deep, and probably about 9 to 11 feet tall, depending on the angle.
Wow.
So I mean, that's the largest size that you can really conceive. But as technology goes on and panels get more compact and more efficient, the arrays become smaller. But at this point, that would be the general dimensions, yeah.
You said 65 feet?
65 feet long, 20 feet deep. Because it's not just the array itself on an angle facing the sun, it also has the racking that it sits on and the mounts that actually mount it into the ground and hold it steady.
How far off the ground is it constructed?
It goes a few feet down. There's these big screws that are used to anchor it into the ground.
Okay.
Yep. But they can be placed in a lot of really creative places, depending on where the sun is, depending on where trees are on the property. But most people that are looking at ground mounts, because most towns have some sort of a 25-foot or 50-foot neighboring lot setback, whether it be front, back, sides, or whatever. So most of the places that do ground mounts are going to have obviously bigger acreage. They're going to have 3-acre property or something like that, and they have this wide open space with no trees that's able to be used. So ground mounts in cities or towns that have ground mount laws, they don't generally allow them in urban settings because the neighbors are too close and all that. But usually in more of a suburban neighborhood with decently sized lots, you can do it really easily. Yeah.
Do we have regulations from a town that does regulate specifically
I could definitely get some draft regulations from other places. Like I said, everywhere I've reached out treats them as structures, so they didn't really.
So they meet lot
Yeah,
density, height.
exactly. They just treat them
setback.
as a structure like you would a shed.
Yeah,
So they didn't really have to alter or add any of the language if they treat this kind of, structure as you do like anything else,
Yeah.
because it'll fall under your,
but
your
we
definitions.
might want to.
Right, if we decide to not regulate them like we do everyday sheds, garages, things like that,
They're-
then
they're-
we would have to draft up some language that has the parameters we see fit, maybe for size limitations, location limitations, whatever parameters the commission sees fit would have to be included in some language that we adopt.
But it's not like we don't have regulations that apply even at this point in time.
Well, right now,
That's what I was going to ask.
it's not specifically listed, and anything that is not listed in our regulations is assumed.
Prohibited, right?
Right, which is the stance I've been taking on this.
Well, that applies as to uses. Does that necessarily,
I would say it applies to this structure as well, because in our definition of structures, it doesn't say ground-mounted solar panels.
yeah,
So I think we should either, and we could add that too, even if we decide to regulate it like everything else, we should include
I mean, it's
that
true.
language.
the definition of structure doesn't include everything
It doesn't,
conceivably possible.
but,
Well, it would be prohibited if it's not included.
right,
Well, would it?
Yeah, that's the way we've interpreted it so far.
it would be.
There are also considerations to septic.
Right, well, any other, any structure has to meet the health code.
Right, so I know we have to pull septic plans a lot of times because we obviously want to avoid it, or for backup septic as well. I had to do that on a client at
Yeah.
one point too.
You can't take up the reserve area.
Right.
obviously, by-
Well, you can't take up the reserve area, and you want incident sunlight to fall on the septic field, because it helps with the evaporation, percolation. So you probably don't want to cover septic fields.
Well, why don't we see if we can get some regulations to look at?
Sure,
And
I guess where, I want to point the commission is, if we want special parameters here, other towns might not have that.
yeah,
So if, I just want to plant the seed in everyone's head to start thinking about, when you're driving down, our streets, is this something that you can see here or not? And if so, what kind of limitations do you want on it? Because while right now I'm falling back on, yes, this is not a structure that is currently allowed in town by our zoning regulations, I would obviously rather address this in a clear, concise manner before I really start getting tons and tons of people who are chomping at the bit to do this sort of thing, and, we're kind of left with what we have.
Right. If you think we deal with a lot of large sheds over the 600 square foot limit now, wait.
Typically, if we do treat them just as any other structure,
Because
675 is our threshold. And they're he said, what is it, 65 by 20? These are pretty large.
What, I didn't do the math, what does that turn out to be? Anybody?
I know Kevin's gonna do this one. Yeah.
Square feet. That's a lot more than what we allow usually without a special permit.
Right,
it is, yeah. Anything over 675.
675, yeah.
Right.
So this would,
So it wouldn't be allowed.
well, it would be allowed by special permit. They would have to, so every field that exceeded that square footage would have to come in
Yeah,
front of us.
so potentially it wouldn't be allowed.
If the
Yeah.
commission were to deny it, but, do we wanna entertain every single one? Cause like he said, it might be very popular very soon.
It may well be, because I can tell you right now, as a proud husband of a firefighter, it creates special problems when you have them on the roof, okay, in the event of a fire.
Yeah.
And with the price of electricity going up, I don't blame people for looking into any other option they can.
All right.
The only other thing I know from experience with other towns is that sometimes they have special considerations too for things like historical districts, and not wanting them to be on the roof at all, and so they need to be on the ground because they don't want to put it on a 1700s building that's historic. I have one right now where we're moving it as far away from the house, the actual house itself, just so it can keep the historic, nature of the home, but still provide power. And this home, even though it's a 1700s home, he has like almost 30 kilowatts of usage because he loves his Christmas lights and uses them year round. But in any case,
Got one or two of those.
yeah, and then they also made special considerations for screening from the road because of just the way that property is, and it's a historical home. They don't want any of the brush in the front of the home to be exposing the array, and so we're leaving the brush.
It's another thing, aesthetically, is this something you can reasonably expect to drive down the road in a residential neighborhood and see fields of these? That's something for the commission to think about as well.
I think it's something you can move on quickly, just get, see what we have, and then we can have a discussion about, is it prohibited from front yard setbacks? So now, all right, from the front yard,
Front yards at all?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and on a corner lots, you're
and
gonna.
maybe on a historic property.
Yeah.
Not allowed,
Because they are gonna be,
yeah. Yeah, it makes, yeah.
they're just enormous
Yeah,
and visible all the time.
right. Especially if you don't have any coverage on the
Like the
trees
ones
in the
on
winter,
roofs are.
you're gonna see these.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they have their own interesting issues with, is all the grass gonna die underneath them? And are you gonna get, if it's on a high slope, are you gonna get sedimentation and erosion and all the rest of that nonsense? When you're,
And then you also have to dig a trench from the ground mount to the house.
yeah,
That's another consideration. It has to be most towns, it's 18 inches underground, and it has to be through conduit and, certain size conduit to the house, because it has to go to the meter and into the electrical box. So,
thank you for your time, sir.
yeah,
Thank you
yeah, no
very
problem,
much.
yeah.
I
Happy
appreciate
to bring it
it.
up, yeah.
Yeah, so why don't we get some more information on it?
Okay, I'll try to pull some towns regs that have information on this. Again, just in the meantime,
But I think we already named a few situations where, it might be beneficial to have those regulations in place,
right, so I think, I, again, want to plant the seed of discussion to start thinking about what you want to see in this language that we adopt. Because there is a lot to think about, as this gets more and more popular. All right.
All right, anything else under old business? How about under new business?
Cannabis regulation,
Being reviewed currently.
being posted? Being
No, reviewed by
noticed?
Reviewed by the planning
gov-
authorities.
The governmental,
Prior.
regional government.
Right, so they have 35 days to do it.
So
And I
that's-
think
Sorry,
that-
right,
It's
so we're
in-
in the process.
We're in the
Yeah, it's in the
process,
works.
yes, it has been sent out. That
That,
is
that
correct.
meeting will be this Thursday night.
Right, yep.
The 9th, so.
Absolutely, Tom.
Okay. Anything else under new business? Okay, Jack, your report?
Not too much. Thanks again, everyone, for showing up last Wednesday for our first training session. I thought it was pretty good discussion. Kind of starting talks about perception of, affordable housing and what it means in our part of the state. I know SCROG has really been pushing for education on it, trying to facilitate conversation, not only between us as the commission where it starts, but with members of the public as well, and kind of raising, awareness and education about the topic that, might be misconstrued or, everyone has an opinion on it. So I'm kind of working with them to push that along and at least get that education side of things going. So again, thank you everyone for being there. We will have our next training session, I believe it's first week of May. Other than that, I gave everyone an update on the winery. They are moving along. They're setting a date for the hearing soon.
The one where, I mean, I know where the winery is, but they had come in requesting like 100,
Outdoor dining and
Right.
additional parking was the.
right, but how many
bulk of it.
tables were they?
Over 20, right?
It was over 20, yeah.
Yeah.
It was it exceeded the 10% allowances.
By many times.
Yeah, by
Okay.
quite a bit, yes. Yep. Other than that, I don't have too much. unless anyone has something for me.
I'm all right. All right, very good. All right, then we can get to our public hearings. We have two tonight. Can we start, Paul, with you reading the,
I'm on it. To
waiver
appear,
notice.
yep, to appear one time on Tuesday, January 24, 2023, and one time on Tuesday, January 31, 2023, the Orange TPZC Notice of Public Hearing. Notice is hereby given that on Tuesday, February 7, 2023, at 7 p.m. at the Orange Town Hall, 617 Orange Center Road, the Orange Town Plan Zoning Commission will conduct a public hearing on the following. Application for special exception, permit, or use submitted by Brian Cleveland Architects for the property known as 200 Indian River Road to convert the existing retail space to operate an escape game room under Section 383-90A of the Orange zoning regulations, and an application for a special exception, permit, or use submitted by Codispoti and Associates, P.C., for property known as 449 Boston Post Road to adapt an existing developed lot for daycare and retail facility. A required parking space reduction has been requested under Section 383-175B of the Orange zoning regulations. A copy of this notice has been filed with the Orange Town Clerk. Additional information is on file in the Orange Zoning Department, dated in Orange, Connecticut, this 23rd day of January, 2023.
okay, thank you. All right, so the first public hearing is on the escape room, 200 Indian River Road. Is the applicant present?
All right. Yeah, I spoke with him earlier last week. He was aware of the date, so
Okay.
I guess if he's not going to be here tonight, I would suggest opening the public hearing, and then it has been open. We'll just keep it open.
Which we just did.
Right, so we'll keep it open, and then we can move on to the second item. If he shows up in the meantime, we can take it
Yeah,
after,
all right, let's-
or we'll push it off till the next meeting.
Let's do that. The applicant is here then for item number 6 on the agenda, which is with respect to 449 Boston Post Road. This is to adapt an existing developed lot for a daycare and retail facility. Good evening, Jeff.
Good evening. We are back. I'm Jeff Gordon from Codispoti and Associates, representing the property owner PCM Enterprises LLC and Bright Beginnings LLC, the applicant and user. And as was mentioned, this is the old
Chef's Emporium?
Chef's Emporium, gourmet, carpet center once upon a time. It's been a few different things. As part of the application, we had submitted earlier a copy of the deed page that was requested in our earlier application that demonstrated that the parking easement goes on as a perpetual easement. Was granted towards Nico Lilios, Ivana Lilios, and their heirs and assigns and whatnot for the parking.
Paul, did you get a chance to look at the? It's attached. That's not a complete copy, right? I mean, it's.
This is just property description. Yeah. Oh, hang on.
It's not. It looks like a property.
That's what Jeff,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it had all the drainage and the utility easements that were attached with it, and the light pole and all the other good stuff that went with it.
So what changed on this?
Okay, basically,
What, was it just to identify that easement? The permanent parking easement?
right, I gave you the Orange Land Record.
If you could take the microphone there, if you could take that up there and hold it while you're talking,
Okay.
facing the wall.
Thank you.
That'd be very helpful, thank you.
I I made note of the Orange Land Record, Volume 348, page 464, subject to an easement for parking in favor of PCM Enterprises. You have that parking, you have the retaining wall there, you have a light pole, you have a number of items there that are called out on there, and that's what we did include. We were also able to pick up some added information, working with Bob Britton on some old historical drainage and sewer connection data, so we were able to add that to the survey. Also recalculated the building parking to demonstrate that the actual existing building, if it is a retail use, shopping use, would be compliant. You have a sliding scale on your parking. 0 to 10,000 square feet, X amount of spaces, 10,001 to 25,000, another 25,001 gets larger. So depending upon which one you calculate, we would either be, on this proposed use, we'd either be 5 spaces shy or 7 spaces shy.
That's with the easement spaces that I'm looking at on the map?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The regulation allows for the reduction under the special permit under a number of different conditions, any one of which can be applied. We have 2 of them that we believe qualify. Section 383-175, potential reduction of parking requirement. 383-175B, permanent parking reduction for one property. The commission, by special permit, reduced the cumulative number of required parking spaces for one property, provided the commission finds one or more of the following based on information provided by the applicant. Peak parking demands among uses occur at different hours of the day, and this offset results in a lower net peak parking demand. That's one of the ones that we feel applies. People drop off their kids usually before 10 o'clock. The retail uses don't really open until 10 o'clock. The other one is the uses are likely to generate transit, bicycle, or pedestrian trips, and accommodations have been made to support these alternate forms of transportation. We have a bus stop right there. I think I included a picture of the bus stop, the route of the bus stop. So that would be something where employees would be able to take public transportation, some of them.
Do you find that any of them do?
Yes, yes. Some carpool, some take public transportation. Synergistic relationships among uses allow patrons to park once, well, you know, if you had a little shop there and somebody wanted to run next door from the daycare to get us, you know, get something there, maybe, but I'm not really anticipating that as a situation. But I think 1 and 3 clearly qualify on that. So we either require 53 spaces or 51 spaces. Jack and I were back and forth on that. He thinks 53, I think 51, but either way, we have 46, so it doesn't really matter all that much. We're asking for the same thing anyway. So the other thing that we did provide, we provided a photometric plan, and I just remind you that these computer-generated plans are not as sophisticated as you might hope them to be. They are two-dimensional in nature. We have heavy landscaping in the back, and we have a grade change where the grade goes up quite a bit there. So what we also demonstrated in our packet were house side shields. And what we would do is we would install the light fixtures, go out with a light meter, and then install the house side shield as it is needed up and down to make sure that there's no spillage. I don't physically believe that there would ever be any spillage back there because of the landscaping, and we're adding landscaping. And
What's back there, Jeff? Behind you? Is residential?
there's houses like up there.
There's a picture, Paul, and
Which one? Oh, I see him.
right in the application.
Well, no, that's the bus stop.
No,
Oh, there's one in the back.
but it shows the back of the property, doesn't it? Yeah.
No,
Shows the back of the store, doesn't it?
Well, buffered, I think.
All back here?
well, that's more like there.
Well,
It's heavily landscaped with natural vegetation, and we're supplementing it, so
so it's not really visible?
the units wouldn't be visible. There are light fixtures there now, but they're really, 1980s model, maybe high-pressure sodium fixtures there with no shields. We're talking about LED fixtures, which are adjustable, and the house side shields are hoods that, where we mount them on the pole, could be customized for the situation. So we could actually, I even sent Jack, get his own $40 light meter from Amazon, so you can go out to the site and see what the lighting is on the property line, and we can adjust accordingly. It's done in the field.
It's got to be better than the yellow high-pressure sodium.
So, and they are putting quite a bit of money into the building, and although it doesn't trigger the architectural supplement requirement, they are on their own going to be adding a cultured stone wainscot on the bottom, along the bottom there, on the entrance side of the building, just to dress it up a bit. That's the side that would be visible if you're traveling south down on the Post Road. As you get past the bank, that's the part that you would possibly see. So, they're doing a little bit more than what is necessary there to enhance the building. So, that's pretty.
There's no ability for the commission to change the requirement with respect to the parking when the second retail, or when the retail use is identified.
Well, the only thing that I would see would happen is if somebody tried to come in under one of those retail uses, like a restaurant or something,
Yeah.
they would have to come back here and ask for their own special exception, and they would have to demonstrate.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. We get a second crack at this.
Well, if
depending
somebody
on-
comes in, they're gonna have to, first of all, it's gonna have to work for them, and they're gonna have to prove that it's not a problem, and you have that crack at that. But right now, this is strictly a retail use.
But a retail use would never satisfy those three.
One of those three.
One would never, it would never satisfy them.
Right, but the idea is that observing the mixture of the retail with the daycare is the,
Right.
so as long as it's general retail, and that doesn't generate a special parking criteria, as he suggested, restaurants, it doesn't matter whether it's a 5 and 10 or, clothing.
So if a retail use came in that had the exact same peak hours.
But can you imagine a retail, do you go
Not
retail
yet.
shopping at 6 in the morning?
No, I know, but I can't, I don't anticipate, I can't anticipate what might go there.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be problematic tenanting it with any retail, just based on the, how it's set up.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
it has frontage, but people are, the reason that site's always been difficult is that it was really a warehousey type building.
Yeah.
That's a sidewinder with parking on the side and the back.
But I guess what I'm asking is, I mean, are we giving now an approval for 46 spaces and that will carry on indefinitely as long as it's just a regular retail use?
And coupled with a daycare center.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's assume the daycare center's always there.
Yeah,
Yes.
A retail use comes in, no matter what that use is,
Right.
we're committed to 46 spaces,
Right.
and that can't change.
Right.
Well, not,
That's not,
that's a general retail use. There are retail uses like a restaurant use,
Yeah.
which has its own separate parking criteria beyond this. Now, if the daycare left there and they took out their playground and went back to the 55 spaces, they would comply under your regulation as a complete building. So if it went back, it would comply. You know, your regulations are only a snapshot. I mean, if you know, those of us who've been around here long enough remember where the Verizon store used to be.
yeah.
The parking lot was okay. Subway was there. It got a little tight. When Crazy Eddie was there, the parking was substandard, and that was a retail use. So that was a retail use that was a regional draw. So you can only break down your parking requirements, but so much. And you have general retail, but then you also have restaurants.
Right.
This is not a restaurant. If somebody wanted to come in with a restaurant, they'd have to really prove to you adequacy.
And the retail component is such a small square footage, it's not likely to be something that generates a large.
What are we talking about for retail over there?
3,000 square feet.
But what are we selling?
Well, it's not determined yet.
Okay, so I mean, it may be for, it's not just for it's not just for the daycare, it's gonna be a separate retailer eventually.
Yeah, it could be a little tiny clothing boutique. It
Yeah,
could, you know,
okay.
it could be
But it's 3,000 square feet. is
could
what
be an
we're talking
accountant's office. It could be something really simple like that.
Well,
you know?
what I mean, you get what I'm saying. I mean,
I get what you're saying, but I don't think it's gonna manifest as a problem by the size of
And the
the
hours of
retail
oper-
component.
And the hours of operation
The hours
differential.
of
Well, that-
operation.
That goes to Tom's, I mean, that, he's saying that there are peak parking demands among uses occur at different hours of the day. If that's the case, if that's true, if we accept that as true, then we have the power to lessen the requirement, lessen the parking
Right.
requirement.
And the classic combinations are office and retail, and then something like this that have very clearly definite different hours of operations
Yeah.
and peaks. You know, and in a lot of respects, this is about, I mean, this is one of those tough sites.
Yeah.
And this is actually the daycare component is a very clever use as, from our standpoint.
Yeah,
You know, I think, you know, and I just, but, sorry, he's not finished.
No, listen, I think this is probably as good a marriage as you're going to get here. The only thing I could ever think about, you know, that might be better as would be a self-storage facility there, which doesn't add much to your tax base.
Well, Tom could move his office there. How many vehicle trips do you do a day, sir?
Not many.
Right.
So there is some overlap with regard to the parking situation, because there is a pickup at some point during the day, which is gonna, I mean, conflict, but for 3,000 square feet, I don't think that should, you know, it's not gonna worry us too much, I don't think. Meaning that the pickup on the kids, there will be some that are being picked up later on in the day.
and Jeff points out, I mean, it's, the retail use is not likely to be a, you know, sort of a high intensity sort of use. It's not gonna be, it's not, probably not gonna be a restaurant or,
And the daycare is not open on the weekends, which a retail user might have a higher usage.
which you point out in your application. We have all the department head sign-offs, Jack?
Yes, sir, we do.
Does the daycare center have do they get a state permit like you do in New York?
Let Mr. Gupta introduce himself and answer.
Hi, my name is Rajat Gupta, 2572 Post Road, Darien, Connecticut, 06820.
Could you spell your name for the record, please?
Rajat Gupta, Gupta.
Thank you.
So what was the question?
Does a daycare facility require a state?
Yes, it
permit?
requires a state license, but state does not come in until even the furniture and the books and the toys, everything is in. They don't say anything. They come when everything is all built, all set up, then they come to give their license.
But there's no need-based requirement?
No.
They leave that to the marketplace?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, again, just to let you know about the pickup and drop-off process, they're spread out between 6:30 and 10 o'clock in the morning. In the evening, people start picking up their children at 3 o'clock, and they pick up by 6:30.
Yeah, so it's rolling.
So it's like spread out. It's not like
Yeah.
everybody's coming at 7 o'clock or
Yeah.
8 o'clock,
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I'm all set.
You're all set?
Yeah.
Any further questions for Jeff?
Nope.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, do we think we need any further information in order to decide the application, such that we need for any reason to keep the public hearing open?
Not unless there's someone from the public.
You get any?
Thank you for reminding me, but,
I've had no input through my office.
okay. Well, I guess I'll ask the question anyway. Is there anyone here in the audience who wishes to speak with respect to this application? No, okay. Then if we don't think we need any other information to decide, then we should close the public hearing.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to close the public hearing. It's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I thought you were gonna comment.
You look ready.
You looked like you were gonna comment.
You told me I had a 100-word limit.
Who said that?
Honestly, you said I had a 100-word
You
limit
told
today. I
me,
used
you
them
told
up.
me he was exposed to somebody with COVID, so.
Listen, it's a tough building. It's a good use for this building.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's a good mix of uses to justify using the shared parking analysis.
yeah. You're comfortable that that's a permanent easement? I didn't see that.
It's an easement, doesn't reference any.
I didn't see the second page, but it's, it's,
Yeah, I would like to have seen the second page too, but it's on the land records. And
Yeah.
Just it's a grant, okay?
Yeah,
yeah.
Grants too, okay?
yeah. The only
Successors.
limitation.
It's successors and assigns. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see
Yeah.
any reason why it doesn't
No.
run with the land in perpetuity, so. That was the problem with the original application submitted. We were unsure as to whether or not the applicant had any permanent rights to those parking spaces, and fortunately, they do.
Well, and the applicant wasn't asking for a relief from the parking regulations either,
I thought they were.
in the last application.
Oh, in the last application, correct. This time around, they are by special permit.
Yeah,
Right,
Yes.
okay.
Yep.
yeah. They ran the math.
Yeah, but we weren't sure that they had
Right.
anywhere near
Correct.
the,
Yes,
without without those easement spaces, they wouldn't have anywhere near.
Very short cars.
Yeah, very little cars. All right. Anything else? Well, if not, we have all the department heads sign off, so we're not concerned about that. All right, so if someone's prepared to make a motion, that would be good.
is it a special permit?
It is.
It is.
All right, so do we have to enumerate any findings on the suitability of the parking, or we've done that?
Well, I mean, the suitability, I think it's the general special permit.
General special permit, I would
Findings.
maybe make a finding on how you find these factors consistent with one of the three reasons for exemption from the parking criteria.
Yeah,
So if you feel, peak parking demands among users occur at different hours of the day, I would include that.
Non-coinciding.
Yes, 383-175.
I'll give it to Kevin.
B1.
No, I'm not talking.
Do you have the, do you have the,
Well, if you want to look at this too.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve.
It's 383-175B.
Yeah.
Which lists three circumstances under which we can, any one of which, if we find any one of which,
We can exempt from
we
the
can
parking.
exempt from the full parking requirement.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll make a motion that we approve the application for a special exception permit or use submitted by Codispodian Associates, PC, for the property known as 449 Boston Post Road, which is to adapt an existing developed lot for a daycare and a retail facility. The required parking space reduction has been requested under 373-175B, and I find that to be applicable in that the uses have peak needs that are offsetting and do not conflict with each other, which allows the parking reduction to make sense.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the application. We have a
Second.
Second, it's been seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, very good.
Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is our applicant for the other one here?
No, it appears not. I will get in touch with him tomorrow and let him know. He's from town too, so.
What's that?
I know he lives here, so probably
He lives at Town Hall?
He, not here at this address, but I know
He got,
lives in Orange.
he got stuck in the escape room.
He didn't escape yet.
He didn't get out.
Maybe it is.
All right, thank you. All right, well, that concludes our brief agenda. Somebody prepared to move that we,
Kevin's got a few more words left on his
it's
100-word
got
limit.
17 more words.
Move that we adjourn.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Tarenti. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. We're adjourned at,
8:26.
thank you.
I'm sorry.
7:26.
7:47.
Man, my computer.